Hello, manifestors. Let's talk about 3 fundamental truths about this law. As you know, I always make my videos based on struggles that I see out there. And this is one of them. The lack of understanding of what you truly are and what this all really means. By the way, my name is Sylviane. I help you understand the law of assumption and manifest your desires and transform your lives. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So what are those 3 fundamentals of the law? Let's talk about them one by one. Number 1, everything is God. Everything is God. What does it mean? Well, it's not for nothing that Neville said, you are God, right? Because if everything is God, of course, since we belong to everything else, we are God. So if you see God as a blanket, let's say God is a blanket that covers over everything that exists, absolutely everything that exists. Everything is God, or everything is part of God. A flower, a tree, an animal, you, and everything else is God. Something that I see people have a tendency to do, it's to believe, number 1, that God is separated from them. So they see them as their usually little ego self, unfortunately, and they see God as something outside of them. But everything is God, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the neutral. Everything is God. So whatever you are right now, even if you feel bad, even if you don't feel that you are going to make it, even if you don't feel that you are going to manifest your desires, even if you feel depressed, all of it is God. This means that you don't have to struggle more to get what you want than to get what you do not want. The moment you truly understand what it means when we say everything is God, is the moment you will give less power to your fears and unwanted circumstances and transform your life. You have created the belief that being God is difficult or unattainable because you do not understand that everything is God. The good, the bad, the ugly, the neutral, it's all God. In other words, you are using your God power to create stuff you do not want because you believe that the bad comes from you, while the good comes from God outside of you. Therefore, it's harder to achieve. So many people do believe that, right? They believe that it's easier to get the negative because the negative comes from me, from my little ego, limited me, while the good comes from God. So right from the get-go, you get stuck in your own misunderstanding here. You believe that being God, being in a God state, understanding and remembering that you are God, it's only linked to good stuff. And everything bad is not linked to God. It's linked to me or even to other people. But this is not so. If you've believed that since day one, well, welcome to the most fundamental thing that you need to understand in this law. Everything is God. So if right now you feel powerless or even depressed, you are using your God power to feel this way. because God is everything. Yes, God is also depression. God is also sadness. God is also fear. Everything is God. You are just using your God power in the wrong way. But everything is God. Life and death is also God. Everything is God. So the first thing you need to do is to stop for a minute and remember that every time you feel something negative, it's still God, right? So what's the difference between entertaining the negative and entertaining the positive? Entertaining you being in your wish fulfilled, rather. I don't like to use negative and positive very much, but sometimes for lack of a better word. So what does it take if it's all God? It only takes to shift your focus. That's all it takes. And I mentioned it in my last video that I'm going to link up here and down below if you haven't watched it. Just a single shift in focus from using your God power into something that you do not want or do not want anymore to something that you do want. And you'll see that all it takes, a shift in focus, a shift in consciousness, because it is all God. So whatever you have put in place until now, because it's a strong assumption already, because it's something you have managed to believe for years and years and years, maybe forever, as long as you can remember. It is that God power that is keeping it in place. So all you have to do is remember that everything is God. So if everything is God, not one thing should be harder to get or to feel or to manifest than the other. All you need to do, it's a shift in consciousness, a shift in focus to dwell in the desire fulfilled, which is also God. But it is God equally. What you do not want, what you don't care about, what is beautiful, what is awful, death, life, everything is God. So this is the first thing you need to understand. And maybe that was the missing link for you, not understanding what it means really, that everything is God. This is why I usually tend to not like the expression God state. I understand what is meant by God state, right? A state where we feel that we are powerful. But God state is really all states. So when you feel miserable, it's also God's state. When you feel amazing, it's also God's state. And this is why the only reason you believe that one is easier than the other is just that you've entertained it longer, focused on, believed it longer. That's all it is. So remember that first fundamental. Everything is God. Fundamental number 2, which I touched a little bit in my last video about revision. If you haven't watched it, please be sure to watch it later. Creation is finished. So creation is finished also has a lot to do with what we said earlier in number 1, that everything is God. Everything is God, therefore creation is finished, meaning that all versions of all things for all people on the planet already exist. What you went through, what you call your past, already exists. But you could also imagine a different past, and it also exists. What your future you think is going to be already exists. The future you do not think that you can even manifest already exist. Everything, all versions of all things in your life already exist. If you understand this second fundamental of this law, this is really going to help you tremendously. In particular, for revision, as I mentioned in my last video, because I have noticed that many people have a resistance against revision because they think that they have to ignore or to delete or to pretend that their past did not exist. No such thing. Everything, all versions of things already exist. You do not have to deny anything about your past. You do not have to deny any behavior of other people that you do not want anymore, because they do exist, because creation is finished. All you have to do is imagine another version of things, another version of a person, because they also already exist. Remember, you couldn't imagine it if it didn't already exist. So if you can imagine it in any way, through audio, visual, or touch, or whatever other sense, if you can imagine it, even with feelings only, no matter what, if you can imagine it, it already exists, and it does exist because creation is finished. Fundamental number 3, the 3D is powerless. This is probably the most stumbling stone for you, is thinking that there is anything in the 3D. The 3D, the third dimension in which you live, is powerless, because everything that you are going through was imagined, because imagination creates reality, what we call reality being the world of shadows, the 3D world, the three-dimensional world. But of its own, it is powerless. The power resides inside you. That's why William Blake said, "As within, so without." You'll never hear a spiritual teacher saying that anything out there is more powerful than what's going on within, because that is not the case. What you create inside, whether or not you are conscious of it, is what manifests as a shadow, as an echo in your 3D world. Every time you give power to the shadow world, is because you are forgetting this fundamental, that that thing out there only exists because you imagined it, you accepted it, you've rehearsed it without even knowing what you were doing. This is why a big part of being a conscious manifester is to observe our mind, right? What are we thinking all day long? What are your inner conversations? What do you believe to be true? What do you assume to be true? Those things that are going on inside your mind, inside your imagination, because imagination is God, is going to transpire into your 3D world. God is in your wonderful imagination. When you use your God force to imagine and feel your desire fulfilled, then it will reflect in the world of shadows. But the power isn't there. This is why every time we want to change something, you want to change you want to change your job, you want to change your SP, you want to manifest your SP, you want to get more money, everything has to start within. Then, in the world of shadows, you will take some actions when it is needed, but actions will always stem from your imaginal act. Everything is done within, because that's where the power is. Remember, there is no power in the world of shadows. If you truly understand that the power is within and not in the world of shadows, every time you fear something, every time you get anxious, every time you feel overwhelmed, or every time you get too attached to the 3D, if you understand that the 3D has zero power, it just reflects. Understanding this, remembering and understanding this will help you to not fear anymore, to not be anxious anymore, to not be so attached anymore to this 3D world. Because you understand and you remember that the 3D world of its own has zero power. The power is within. Everything is God. Creation is finished, and the 3D has no power whatsoever. If you remember those three truths about this law, this is going to help you to shift and manifest any desire you may have. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. I love to read your comments and even answer your questions. And be sure to like the video so this video, which is very important, will be seen by more people. And also this helps my channel and encourages me to make more videos such as this one. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now.